Hey guys, Board now back with you. On this video I will be talking about the 5th episode of the first season of Katla, and the episode is called Northern Winds, so I will be discussing full spoilers from the beginning just to warn you, and also just to remind you to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video and you want more similar videos, and also to share me out on social media. So it's very easy. Just take a quick second to help me out. Thanks, guys. So getting into this episode, it's a really exciting one. A fair bit happening in this episode, and I think one of the things that makes it even more sort of meaty and intriguing is the title of the northerly winds. So this northerly wind starts blowing into the town, and it creates a really severe storm, and it not only adds to the drama, but it also adds to the atmosphere and the tension of the episode, and how it just impacts on certain characters. Because one thing this episode does is that it separates quite a lot of characters, and they're sort of on their own individually through one reason or the other. So the two sisters are separated because there's a bit of tension between them in the episode, but coming from Grimmer, who is starting to believe that Azure, it's not the real Azure basically, and that's because of the body they found looking a bit like someone who looks like Azure. It's obviously hard to make it out because it was very sort of mouldy, but she certainly believes that it looks like her, and she's not the only one. So they're kind of separated for a lot of the episode, with Grimmer still looking for her own answers, and also Daryl separated from his, well, let's say potential son, and his wife or ex-wife. So there's sort of that going on as well. So a lot of characters are separated, including the two sisters and Daryl from Mikhail and from his wife. So that definitely spices things up, and there's a couple of scenes. So at one point Daryl persuades the psychic woman to like lend him a car because he wants to go after Mikhail and Mikhail's mother, but then obviously things don't go to plan, and he almost gets like sort of killed off, or at least gets caught up in the storm, and he has to go back to the hotel where he gets a bit of a local history lesson from the psychic woman, which is interesting. So you've got to think that beyond all else, she kind of holds the answers to much going on, even though she's been sort of almost this character from the peanut gallery who has just observed things and is often up to weird shit, you have to say, but she obviously isn't like an active character in itself in the drama, but she often seems to have this knowledge, this wisdom, and he does tell Daryl about like the local legend of a woman who became obsessed over her kid, and it's almost as a cautionary tale, because she says, well, all this awful stuff happened to this woman, so yeah, watch out, stay out of their lives, don't follow your son, don't follow Mikhail and his mother, because it can only lead to bad things. And she also talks about the legend of these missing people who went missing in the volcanoes, the volcanic areas. And this certainly feels like the series starting to bring the dots together, because that's what we're starting to suggest in this episode, even more than ever. Than there are doubles of all the characters. And one of the strong points about the episode as well is the interview scenes with the police officer, Giselle, I think his name is, or something like that. he's actually a really good actor and really good character, because he's very conflicting. There's certain moments in the drama where you actually like him or you feel for him, but then there's other parts where he can be really unsettling and creepy, and I guess he uses that in this episode, and he sort of plants the seeds and kind of plays Grimmer and Azure off against each other, because when he's questioning Grimmer and he gets her to admit then the photograph of the woman they found, the body, then it does look a lot like Azure, which Azure doesn't want to admit later on when she's interviewed. But they start talking about theories, and he then uses that later on. He brings up the point then, it appears as though Grimmer is scared of you, and he keeps returning to this question of, because they both say we didn't know there was a body under there, and he obviously repeats the question, well, why did you dig under the shed then? And Grimmer obviously goes off and does her own thing, and she gets caught up in the storm at one point. And she even mentions to her boyfriend that, for the first time, really, that, hey, the body looked like Azure, so I'm not sure this is the right Azure, or this isn't really Azure, is kind of how she phrases it. And I'll give the boyfriend a little bit of credit here, because he did actually speak up here and kind of say, well, are you sure? You've been through a lot. And he brings up the question of her medication, and I think that's been mentioned before, but I guess it's probably a fair question. She has been through a lot, and I think it was mentioned in an early episode that she maybe hadn't been taking her medication. But that's obviously a thing. So probably a better episode for the boyfriend, who I think had been a little bit annoying at times. But yeah, all these dots are brought together, and Azure, I think she features actually more in this episode than she maybe has up to now, and she starts questioning herself, am I the real Azure type of thing, and she admits later she doesn't know who she is. And there's a scene actually when she walks in on her father and the younger doppelganger, and there's quite a nice shot actually of just like the past and her as a young child, walking in on them, which I guess could mean then it was actually her that they were talking about in the last episode, when they said, your daughter walked in on us. So that's something to consider. But yeah, the actress who plays Azure, I think, really gets to shine in this episode. At one point, because I think she's just freaking out, and she goes to the nurse and sort of wants a place to stay, but she ends up freaking out the nurse. So then she, I guess after she's being questioned by Giselle, she then kind of, seduces the other cop, the younger cop, the one who we know has feelings for her. And she talks him into going somewhere, just to an abandoned house, and they drink and they start kissing. But then her mood does change, and it's again to do with Grimmer. It's to do with the fact that Grimmer doesn't trust her, doesn't believe that she is the real Azure, or starting to have those doubts. So I think we see the psychological effect that's beginning to have on Azure in this episode. So she quickly backs away and actually goes back to I think it's the nurse. It certainly looked like her from the previous episode, but she returns to her and says, I'm sorry for upsetting you, but I don't know who I am. I really need a place to stay, and sort of talks her into letting her stay the night. So there's that as well, and obviously the other big plot. Well, I should say actually before I move on from the plot, then the big cliffhanger ending is that Grimmer, having travelled through this extreme storm, comes upon another girl, another woman from the volcanic ash. She's got ash head to toe, and it turns out that, well, she's claiming to be Grimmer. So based on that ending, there's another Grimmer as well, even though Grimmer has been living alive and well, or apparently so, in the town. So there you have it. That's quite the ending. The other big stuff is with Macau, and when the father wants to let the police know that, hey, we've got this boy, he's unidentified, and Daryl, I should say, and it all stems from Daryl not being convinced that he is their son, and the whole question of why did he lock Macau in the shed, what was that all about, what was he scared of, comes up. But the mother, when the police come for Macau, she takes him in the car. She's determined to believe it is Macau and doesn't want to give him up. And they drive away, and it becomes this thing where, because of the storm, they don't really pursue them. But the mother starts to have doubts because she talks to Macau later on, and why was he scared of you? Why did he lock you in the shed? Macau says, I don't know. But then when she talks to him about the fire, he claims that it was still an accident, but then he actually liked it because he says the other students at the school were always mean to him. So it's that kind of thing where he's saying he was happy about what happened. He was happy then they suffered because of the way they treated him. But then he kind of owns up to other stuff like the car accident incident, so he seems to be taking credit for that. And he also says that he wishes death on the father, basically. So he's a really sinister kid. They've cast that part roles. I think pretty much all the actors in this show have been good, and that sort of spooks the mother out, so she ends up leaving him behind, which is, I think, if you're maybe saying one thing, that feels like a bit of a massive U-turn. So maybe that feels a little bit forced from the mother. I can only think maybe she's heard certain things, certain rumours, and or that maybe it just took that for her to maybe click that maybe this isn't my son. I mean, obviously it's kind of a crappy thing to do, even if he isn't her son, because it's still a young boy and she's leaving him out there in a storm and everything. But maybe it was just that moment she needed for the switch to sort of I'm looking for the right metaphor, but for the switch to click, I'll say. So there's this stuff, and it's a good episode. It's a strong episode. It brings together a lot of what they've been building up in recent episodes, and it was sort of meaty, and I enjoyed the stuff with the storm and the effect it had on the characters. So yeah, there you have it. That's Katla episode 5, Northerly Winds. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Please like and subscribe. Also share me out on social media. If you ding the bell on YouTube, that will notify you when I go live with a video or a live stream. But I'll be back with a review of episode 6 very soon. Thanks for listening, and goodbye.